Welcome to the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers. There are no traffic jams along the extra mile when you're studying for your bar exam. And now your hosts, Jackson Mummy and Megan Saya from Celebration Bar Review.
Well, hey everyone. Welcome to the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers. This is Jackson, and I'm really glad to be with you. In a moment, I'm going to be joined by Megan, and we're going to be talking about everything that's happened this week in the bar exam world. It was another very busy week, and it reminded me of when my children were young and we would take driving trips, and they would continually say, you know what's coming. Are we there yet? It feels like a perpetual, long, and never-ending road trip, doesn't it? As we reach into what should have been the culmination of the bar exams in 2020 in a couple of weeks, but now we've got exams coming in August and a couple in September and then in October, and there are all kinds of wild permutations right up until just the last few minutes before I went to record today's episode. I do want to let you know that among those strange new permutations, Virginia has decided to give both an in-person July bar exam and they're going to give an online one-day Virginia-specific test on September 10th. That's the second day of what's being given September 9th and 10th around the country, but they're just using the one-day part of the exam. So there you go. The good news, I guess, if you're taking the Virginia bar is that in light of the COVID restrictions, it is no longer necessary for gentlemen to be wearing ties to the bar exam. So there you go. The other big piece of late-breaking news was a notification from California to their bar applicants indicating that they would reach a decision about what to do, finally, sometime during the week that's to come, the week of July 15th. And so we'll be keeping an eye out for what that decision is. Our anticipation, as you'll hear in a moment from our discussion, is for an October 5th and 6th online exam, but we'll see what they come up with in California. Meanwhile, around the country, everyone is just in a watch and wait mode. And I think that more than one bar taker has sent me the equivalent of a "Are we there yet?" message. So if that reflects your feelings, you know that you're not alone. If this is your first time on the podcast, well, welcome. We're glad you're here. You've come to the right place to find out about all things bar exam related. And we come to you each week this same time. We offer our podcasts in video and audio format. If you'd like to watch today's episode, you can go to celebrationbarreview.com/315. That's the episode number. If you prefer to listen to podcasts, you can do that through Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, radio.com, Spotify, lots of other places where podcasts are syndicated. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out. We've been doing bonus episodes as some of these major states have announced their changes, just like Texas did last week. So make sure you're subscribed and you don't miss out on any of that information. Now, before we jump into the meat of our episode today, I do want to let you know that we have a couple of really exciting things going on. We have a free training webinar. Its title is "Now is the Best Time to Take the Bar Exam: How to Ignore the Crowd and the Fear." And the free webinar has been exceedingly well received. We've had over 1,000 people go through the webinar, and the feedback has been great. Now, we're offering it a couple of times a week, and you do need to register in advance. You can do that by going to the show notes for today's podcast, or by going to celebrationbarreview.com/now to get all the details. But during our 1-hour training, we're going to show you the particular strategy that we think is really appropriate now for the fall of 2020 and into 2021, particularly for repeat bar takers and non-traditional bar students. And so if you've been wrestling with what to do in light of all of these changes, I think this webinar will be incredibly helpful for you. I also conclude each webinar with an open live Q&A to answer any questions that participants have about their particular jurisdictions or circumstances, and I really invite you to check that out. So again, you can register just by going to the link here in the show notes or going to celebrationbarreview.com/now. And the final thing I wanted to let you know about is a brand new product that we've just released to the public. It's called the Multi-State Nutshell Video Series. And this is really something I'm excited about. I'll be telling you more about it in the upcoming episodes. But essentially what we've done is to take the most testable principles and rules in each of the 7 multi-state bar exam subjects, And we've put them into short 25-minute videos that have both the text on the screen and narration. And they're designed to run with very little sound gap between words. So they run at relatively fast speed. And the beauty of this is it's a great way to review and get all of your summary done in under 25 minutes per subject. Now, we released these to our existing students last week to beta test, and the reaction was fabulous. Students absolutely love them. They're using them already, purchasing them for their own use. You can buy each subject individually for $47, or you can buy the whole set for $247. We'll link to that in the show notes so that you can find it. Really encourage you to check it out. It's a great new way, I think, to do your last-minute review, your study of the MBE subjects. And so we are pleased to be able to offer that to the public at large. You don't have to be a Celebration Bar Review student to have this particular tool. All right, well, lots of things going on, but certainly lots happened in the last week, and we expect more in the upcoming days. And Megan Saya joined me to break it all down for you right now. So Megan, we're back. It's been a week that has been pretty crazy, starting on the 4th of July, really, or there's something about how the bar examiners sort of wait for the end of us to record our weekly session, and then they just unload all sorts of new stuff. So goodness knows what will happen today. But why don't you catch us up on where we are today and what's happened in the last 7 days?
Yeah, so if you're a Florida student, I'm sure you've heard that, I believe it happened while we were recording the webinar last Friday. Florida realized, we rescheduled the bar exam for the same day as the Florida primary election. So they moved the date. So after moving it to August 18th, they then switched it to August 19th. So that means it's on a Wednesday now. So hopefully you all got that message. You should have received notification from the examiners. I know it was all over the internet, but definitely kind of a bit of, stepping on the rake, as it were. And, I think
yeah, that's good.
But yes, so Florida is now on August 19th for their online exam. So the examiner sent out a letter about clarifying some of the rules, which is really helpful. So we know now more of what the actual exam is going to look like. So I'm going to look at my notes and make sure I get this right. So we've got, in Florida, there's going to be essay number 1, which will be an hour in the morning. Then there will be a break. Then there will be essay number 2. Then that will go straight into essay number 3. So different than the California Baby Bar, no break in between those 2 essays. Then there'll be a lunch break. Then you will come back and do 50 multiple choice questions in 90 minutes. Then there'll be a break. Then 50 more multiple choice questions in another 90 minutes, and then you're done. So it seems like a fairly manageable schedule.
It does. But, I think one thing we want to emphasize here is the importance of time management now. You don't have the normal, in an in-person exam, they just would hand you all your morning package and then all of your afternoon package, and you can allocate the time. That's not going to be the case here. That first essay is a hard stop at 60 minutes. So you can't be writing essays now at 65 or 70 minutes. It's 60 minutes. Then I don't know if they're going to do a hard stop after essay 2 and go into 3, or if they'll just give you the 2 essays together in the time. You may have some ability to manipulate between those 2. We're not entirely clear on that. And then the lunch break is a 1-hour lunch break. This is not like, for those who've been to Tampa before, where everybody files out and it's chaos, and then they kind of try and get them back in, and they're shepherding or herding cats back into the room. I think when they say 1 hour, they mean 1 hour. The computer is going to turn back on, your webcam is going to turn on, and they're ready to go. So don't be, don't
go there. You want to make a lunch plan for however if you're at home, if you're ordering something in, whatever it is, you need to make sure you've made that plan and you know how you're going to do it, because yes, we saw with the Baby Bar, and we expect it to be the same everywhere else. The time, it's not an hour from when you log in. It is an hour from when they are ready to start. So if they start at, 12:03, then you have from 12:03 to 1:03. And there's no, but I got stuck, in a drive-through line. No, if you don't start until 12:05, you still have only till 1:03. You don't get those extra 2 minutes. So please make sure that whatever instructions they give you, that there's no wiggle room here. Think of it as being like you're locked out of the room or something,
Right. And the other part of this in the afternoon, doing 50 questions in 90 minutes, we have advocated all along doing questions at about 90 seconds a question. You're going to need to be at we would recommend that pace. You're not going to be able to go much longer than that because, again, you don't get 3 hours to do 100 questions. You get 50 and boom. So if you're running slow and you end up having to guess on 5 questions at the end, there's no way to recover that. So I think mentally people have to make this shift. And I would suggest if you're taking the Florida bar or any online exam, you start studying and practicing with those timeframes that your jurisdiction is giving you. So that's part of the setup. The other interesting thing to me, obviously they're using a different computer vendor, ILG, but I noticed in their letter they talked about a new registration period of July 15th to August 7th. And it's not clear to me. We talked, I think, last week about the fact that we thought people who had not registered for the July 2020 exam would be precluded from sitting in this August exam. I'm not 100% clear on what they're doing here. I'm not sure that this may not be a late registration opportunity for people. So if you were still thinking about that possibility, that new registration date comes up on starts July 15th, and it extends to August 7th. So they're going to go pretty deep into the exam period. And I would reach out and talk to the examiners if you think that you want to do that. You will have to get your laptop set up and you'll have to register, and that's true in all these different jurisdictions. So make sure you check that out. And there are some discussions about accommodations and so on. I think most of the states are doing online and trying to figure that out. We're not going to go into the details there, but just make sure that you are following those rules and looking very carefully at the rules in each jurisdiction. They're changing rapidly, aren't they?
They are. And it's an easy assumption to make that they will also vary between jurisdictions. So we've already seen that. Every state kind of has their own spin on things. So please make sure that you're checking with your jurisdiction. You're not listening to your friend who's taking the bar in Tennessee. It's just make sure that if you're hearing it from your examiners, that's the only way you can, be certain that that's really going to be the rule that applies for you. So yes.
Yeah. Okay. So that's Florida. What else?
The other big news from this week was Texas. So they also canceled their July exam. Obviously, Texas is a place that's being hit pretty hard with coronavirus. But they have not gone so far as to abandon in-person testing fully. They're optimistic still, I guess. So they will be doing an in-person test September 9th through 10th. So they're keeping that one. They were already planning on that. They're keeping that one, canceling the July one. But then they're added an online October 5th through 6th. Okay, this is what that one's going to look like. It's going to be different than the other October 5th and 6th exams that are just like Maryland, Massachusetts, DC. This is going to look different, the Texas one. So the Texas one is going to use the 100 MBEs from the NCBE. They're going to have the one multi-MPT, so the same one as the NCBE puts out. But then they're going to have their procedure and evidence questions, and they're going to have 12 Texas essays. So this is different. The September exam will, as of right now, have the 6 Texas essays. The October exam is going to have 12 Texas essays. So keep that in mind. That's going to be a big difference between the two.
And you and I did a fairly lengthy discussion and breakdown of this. June can put the link up, but you can find it at celebrationbaru.com/314. That was the episode number. And we broke down our suggestions about these two different tests and what makes more sense. And I know we got some questions this week from students asking, should I sit for one exam versus the other? While we can't give individualized admissions advice, I think our view is that in general terms, I think it's better to have 6 essays than 12. I think the online test is going to be I think it's going to take a long time to do it. I just think it's going to be hard. And, but there's the health consideration. And obviously, if you're in Houston, really, you're going to go sit in a room with other people in Houston. That seems very unlikely to me unless there's a massive shift in the numbers between, early July and early September. Could happen. I hope it does. but certainly something to keep in mind. And of course, with all of these states, including Texas, there's a lot of options. The examiners are saying, if you don't want to sit for these exams, you can waive into 2021, typically without a penalty. But I think you and I have talked about now pretty repeatedly, we don't see this problem going away at the end of 2020, right?
Right. Yeah. Obviously, I think everybody pretty much understands intuitively that February, in the midst of cold and flu season in a normal year, without a vaccine, it's probably not super likely that we are going to be able to pack thousands of people into ballrooms in February of 2021. And potentially in some of these states, we're looking at a sort of tsunami a bit of applicants wanting to sit for the February exams, because not only will you have the normal people who would sit for a February exam, but you will have people who've been pushed over from the July exams who are sitting. So you may end up with larger numbers than you would normally see for a February exam anyway. So.
Yeah, and I wanted to just briefly mention this. In looking at a lot of the state changes this week, a lot of the states, even the ones that are staying with their July exams, are offering temporary practice waivers. I think we are seeing a huge number of people who are going to take these temporary practice waivers and sit out the exam, which is what we've been talking about, although I know there's a weird set of numbers in California, and we should talk about that in a minute. But in general, I think you're going to see a lot of first-time takers not participating in this exam, which means that if you have the ability to take the test, I think you've got a much clearer path to passing, because a lot of those people who would grab those passing spots aren't going to take the test. They're going to use their temporary waiver and sit out the exam for, obvious reasons. So these are really strange times for sure, but be strategic about what you're doing. Be careful about your health, but be strategic. Don't just opt out of this exam if you really could take it, because I think a lot of people are going to go that direction, and it's going to create a real opportunity for the people that do take the test. So.
Yeah, as of right now, a lot of the states who are giving the waivers, the temporary practice waivers, are requiring then people to sit for the February 2021.
Yeah, and that's the tsunami, right?
Which again, we don't know. Maybe that gets pushed back to July 2021. I mean, it's just this is just basically not a mess that's going to go away anytime in the next couple months. So, even with Texas, I would say, if you're really on the fence, I wouldn't spend a lot of time stressing about which one to take. Yeah. There's a really good chance that they won't give the September exam anyway, to be perfectly frank. And so, obviously we hope that the situation is much better there, but even if it's much better in Texas in September, that doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to feel comfortable with putting, this many people together in the ballroom for 2 days. So it's just, I think the moral of it basically is pick what feels the best to you, what you feel the most comfortable with, and go with it and focus on your studies as opposed to focusing like, which exam should I pick?
Yeah, let us worry about that other stuff.
Okay, so now we've got a couple of, these are smaller changes, but I did want to point them out. So Pennsylvania, they give a state exam. This is not a UBE jurisdiction, but they have canceled their state in-person exam, and they are doing October 5th through 7th online exam. And so 2 reasons I think this is interesting. One, we've got another state opting into the NCBE's online exam, and this one not a UBE state, which is interesting. Right. This means Pennsylvania has their own test that they write every year, and they have decided to swap over to this online one. They'll keep their Pennsylvania-specific things as well, I'm sure. But also the other reason why this is interesting is so they're doing a 3-day exam. And that's because Pennsylvania examiners believe that the protocols for security and proctoring and breaks and things are going to make the online exam longer than they would be in person. And so they wanted to spread it out for the examinees. So it is an interesting thing to think about, like that Pennsylvania sort of is seeing, I don't know that this is going to run quite as smoothly as you're thinking of, we can get them in and out of there real fast.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah.
I think that the what I was looking at here just a minute ago, Pennsylvania does not give the MPT. So that means that even without the performance test, they wanted to have the 100 multiple choice questions. Again, not a full-length MBE, but even with that, they still think they need 3 days. So I think you're right. That's a significant move and something that might be a precursor. We may see some other states go that way.
Yeah. So the second state is Kentucky that they give a state exam, not a UBE. but they canceled both their July and their September in-person exams. So there's an example of a state who is less optimistic than Texas and saying, we're not going to do the September. We're not going to plan for the September exam. We're going to do just an online October 5th through 6th. So again, another state picking the online NCBE exam, even though they do not normally give the UBE test.
Yeah, and they're not a UBE jurisdiction, although they use the multi-state essay exam, and then they have some Kentucky-specific stuff. So I think what they're doing is that they're probably just going to use the 3 essay questions from the national conference and the performance test and the 100 multiple choice. So they're morphing into a UBE for that purposes of that exam. That was interesting to me. Do you remember, I'm probably throwing you a curve here, Arizona, did they make a decision to do something this week?
No, they changed the other week.
Okay, all right. So but Arizona's in that October exam date.
Yes,
okay.
yeah, I believe they're doing online, but yeah.
Okay.
Here.
All right. Okay. Because I mean, with coronavirus in Arizona, obviously, it seems like
they're doing the UBE in July still, but they are giving people the option to do the online October 5th and 6th. So.
Okay. So their July test will be in person.
Yeah, Arizona is still charging ahead with a in-person July exam. Yeah.
Okay. Why not? Okay.
Yeah. All right.
So
next,
yeah, are you going to talk about reciprocity?
No, I'm not. Not yet. We're good.
Okay. Sorry. What would you like to talk about next? I'm really messing you up.
I promise. Okay. So next we've got, real briefly, Arkansas. They confirmed they are a UBE state. They confirmed they'll be doing the July in-person exam. They had said they had a September backup exam. They're not doing the September backup. They're going to go ahead and do the in-person July exam. However, they're one of those states, they're doing a temporary practice waiver until the February 2021 exam. But that's only for people who've never failed any bar exam. So not even just Arkansas, but any bar exam.
Yeah, and that's pretty typical, isn't it? These practice waivers are really only for first-time takers.
Yeah. And then Missouri has also confirmed that they are doing an in-person July exam. They also had a September backup date. They said they're not going to do that. They're going to have people sit for the July exam. So those are both UBE jurisdictions that we were still, I mean, it seems inconceivable that we were still waiting to hear this close to the exam date, whether they were actually holding it in a few weeks. So yes, it will be. Okay, so now reciprocity. So Maryland announced that they did reach a reciprocity agreement just for the October 5th and 6th exam. It's between Maryland, DC, and Massachusetts. They did say also that if there are any other states that are doing the October 5th and 6th, they'll be in discussions with them about reciprocity. We don't anticipate that there would be any reciprocity with, for instance, Texas, who's doing a very different kind of October 5th and 6th online exam. Right. It would be the states that are also doing the 100 multiple choice, the 1 MPT, and then the MEES.
Yeah, so it's possible that Kentucky or Arizona might be drawn into this regional compact or, national regional compact. I think it's worth, watching. I think it's good news, don't you, that we've got reciprocity. Certainly the DC, Maryland, Massachusetts piece is good because DC is kind of a worthless bar membership to hold, frankly, by itself. So if you can sit for in the DC exam, which I love the examiners there, and get that score transferred up to Massachusetts or over to Maryland, I think that's really a good thing. Now, we don't know what the passing score will be in any of these states. It could be a very different passing score. It could be a different way of scoring the exam between the 3 of them and anybody else that comes in. This is all, as you pointed out, this is the way reciprocities always work. My exam state and your exam state, if they choose to honor each other, they're different exams. So the UBE has kind of made us spoiled about score portability. That's how you got reciprocity, was by making a portable score. This is not score portability. This is pure on, if you get admitted into DC or Massachusetts, you can, apply in those other states, straight up. And I think that's really an interesting piece to this.
Yeah, definitely. So the difference is really that instead of it saying, here's the cutoff, and if you get a 270, then you can be admitted here, here, here. Instead, what it's saying is, like Maryland, for instance, has said, great, if the Massachusetts bar admits you off of this exam, or the DC bar admits you off of this exam, then we'll admit you pending, character and fitness exams and things like that application. But so that's really very different. They're basically saying we trust that the other examiners, we're going to let them make the determination. If you meet the competency requirements that they've set forth, then we'll allow you to come and practice in our state. So yeah, very different than sort of the, everyone will take the same test between those reciprocal states, but the scoring may not be the same. And those states are saying that's okay. We're okay with that as long as that state determined that you made a minimum competency there. So yeah, but definitely good news. Reciprocity is a great thing. So I'd like to see that. Okay, and then that's it for the changes. But I did want to talk briefly, if we want to talk about California, and I know Tiari just asked a question, did I miss it? We did not miss the discussion about California. So we are still waiting out here in California to find out if we are having the exam in September or in October, and what the format is going to be. But California did have a meeting, like a giant call, where they allowed, it was only for people who are currently registered for the next exam, the September exam, and they each had a minute to speak if they wanted to. I didn't hear great things coming out of it. I think people were very split about whether they wanted online or not online. People were very emotional, which is understandable. People, I think, sometimes maybe got a little unkind about, which we definitely would just caution you, like, you want to make sure that you, and not that any of our students would have done this, I'm sure, but these are people who you may come up in their courtrooms one day. You are asking them to admit you to their jurisdiction. So I definitely wouldn't be, yelling or name calling or things like that.
Threatening. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just you gotta wonder sometimes. I think it was a venting session, most of the feedback I've heard. I don't know that the examiners were really looking for a lot of input. I think they're gonna do what they in the court want to do regardless. They might be looking for some political cover for making some change or another. I know that there was a huge sentiment that there should be no bar exam. You should just let everybody in. I would like to look like Brad Pitt, but wanting it and having it happen are two very different things. I don't see any way in the world that California just says, sure, everybody comes in. I mean, this is the most restrictive bar in the nation. And to suggest that they would suddenly throw their doors open, I think they said 9,600 applicants is what they were expecting. That number is crazy. I think that's an historical number. I just don't believe there are 9,600 people that have applied.
Yeah, I think that's insane. But yes, so I know. Yeah, I mean, I think I feel for everyone who's waiting on this and trying to take it, and it really stinks. And the accessibility issues are very real. I mean, that's in our bar review, that's why we work so hard to keep the prices really low for people. And we ask that, it's really important to us that we help people who are underrepresented in the bar. And, for me, I'm a member of the California bar. I care very deeply about changing the makeup of the California bar, that it's wrong, that it does not reflect the state of California more. And so we care very deeply about that. So definitely our sympathies are with all the people who are concerned about, racial disparities in the test and in the asking people to have access to a place to study right now, to reliable internet to study and to take the test. I mean, definitely, like, these are huge systemic issues that we very, very much are on board with. These things need to change. But unfortunately, I just don't see any way that the examiners are going to allow thousands and thousands and thousands of people to waive in as attorneys in California. It's just not
and I think in addition to that, we're not going to see a score reduction, most likely, off of this exam. I mean, ultimately, they need to make a score adjustment, but I don't think it'll happen in this test. I don't think California is in the position of Oregon or Washington, where they are desperately looking for people to become members of the bar. So their incentives are really quite the opposite. And I think given that, they're going to continue to be more restrictive. And, my guess, I think yours as well, Megan, is that we're going to end up with an online October exam, not an in-person September exam. But again, we don't know. We don't know when that announcement will be made. We don't know It's got to be soon, I think, but
I don't know if Wenda, if they said this in the meeting, so they'll probably wait until after July 16th. So I'm not sure if that from there, but yeah, definitely we know that it should happen this month. I don't anticipate they're going to wait that much longer, but yeah, we'll keep you guys updated. We know it's super frustrating, and in the meantime, keep studying. That's really the best thing you can do is keep studying. Thankfully,
don't stop.
Right, exactly. And it is a while off, but even if it stays in September, you've got some, oh good, that's Wenda just said that's their deadline date. So great, thank you. Thanks for letting us know that. So like I said, the call was just for people who are registered, so we couldn't be on the call, but got to talk to some people who have been on it. So
yeah, amazingly enough, they didn't want to hear my opinion. Although I think they listen. I think based on the podcast listen rates and the comments I get back, they might be listening. So interesting. Okay, so that's California. We'll know by July 15th, right? Or 16th. Yeah. So.
Okay. So we've got some questions about kind of what's happening with the changes. So I want to answer some of those. All right. This was a good question from the Facebook page. Do any other Florida people have a sense that they're going to hit the Florida distinctions hard on the multiple choice? So like if they mix together with the multiple choice questions, they, instead of just having Florida multiple choice and then MBE, they kind of put them together and try to talk about some differences between where the law diverges between the two.
It is a good question. I don't think that's what they're going to do. I think you're going to see the same bank of Florida multiple choice questions that they've historically given on day one. That is civil and criminal procedure, Florida Civ and Florida Crim Pro, Florida evidence, not multi-state evidence, business entities, which is Florida-ish specific, and then Florida wills. I think those 5 subjects actually, will be covered in depth. There may be a handful of questions that come from other topics, but I think it's really a handful. I mean, I think of the 100 questions, I would guess, I'm personally thinking 90 of them would come from those subjects. So I don't think there's going to be distinctions. I think what's more likely is that in the essays, you will get multi-state topics with Florida crossovers like professional responsibility, maybe Florida con law, maybe Florida domestic relations. I mean, any number of possibilities. As we get closer to that exam date, I will do a preview video for our students where I make more specific evaluations of what I think might happen. But it is certainly, it's an unprecedented situation. And because I don't make my videos based on inside information, it's really just my best guess about where I think we're going. So could this questioner be right and it's going to be Florida distinctions? Absolutely could. It's just based on my experience and sense that I don't think that's what they're going to do.
All right, we have a couple of questions. Anur asked in the chat box, and then we had also had a question about when you're looking at these online tests. Anur asked, can you clarify whether the computer-based test is going to be more difficult, maybe even just in terms of timing? Is it going to be more difficult? And then someone else had asked previously, how should I be preparing for an online bar exam?
Yeah, well, a lot of it will be the same. You know, writing essays should be pretty much the same. Most of you type, and that should look pretty much the same. You'll simply have the question on the screen instead of in a book in front of you. The multiple choice will certainly be different. You won't be going to a bubble sheet. You'll be taking a question and then answering it. So that's one way to practice there. As you and I have been talking about for weeks now, the performance test is the big problem. I am still waiting for some jurisdiction, any jurisdiction, really anyone, to talk about how they're going to do a performance test. It just defies imagination that you're going to have to break this up into 3 screens, one with the test, one with your notes, and one with your answer. The amount of scrolling and moving back and forth is ridiculous. The good news is the very first online test doesn't come until later in the fall, so we've still got time to figure that part out. I don't want people trying to obsess about that right now. When we know more, we will, and we'll talk about what to do, and we'll come up with some strategies to deal with it. For now, if you want to put a performance test on your screen and then work from that and see how you're able to do that without scratch paper, I think that would be a good practice. But recognize that the plan may change as the examiners tell us what they're going to do. Maybe they're going to make a shorter performance test. I'm just not sure what they're going to do. I don't think they've thought it through, frankly, and I think they're a little stuck right now. So we'll see.
All right. And then this is the last question about coronavirus changes and sort of everything. Today, the bar examiner sent a notice asking if we would like to postpone taking the Illinois bar until February. I can't stand the thought of not passing again. My job just furloughed us, and with the Black Lives Matter crisis, I'm concerned about my son who's a senior in college. So this is just like such a good summary of like there is so much happening socially, economically, from a health perspective, and people feeling like, where does the bar fit into this? What should I do? Do I wait? Do I just push it off and wait until things have calmed down a bit?
Yeah. And I wish I had a one-size-fits-all answer. I don't. I think everyone has to make a decision based on the priorities in their lives. Health, in my mind, comes at the top of the list. Family comes right after that. The bar exam will still be there one way or another. So I always worry when somebody tells me the bar is the most important thing. It rarely is. I think that if you can find a path to take the bar exam this fall, for the reasons I talked about earlier, I believe that the chances of success on this fall test are greater than they will be elsewhere. But I also think that this is not going to be a one and done. There are going to be online tests in 2021. That's my guess. There are going to be revisions to the bar exam because we're going to learn things, and the bar examiners are going to learn things. I don't believe that there's going to be a panacea magic solution that suddenly appears to solve coronavirus, on October 31st. And of 2020. And so I think that we just have to recognize that it's a constantly changing environment, and you're going to have to decide as an individual what's most important to you. I will say that within our course structure, as Megan said, we are totally dedicated and committed to supporting our community of students. We've done that by making it completely restriction-free when it comes to deferrals, to pass guarantees, to all of those things. We're not putting any restrictions on at all, zero. So you can do whatever you got to do, and we'll support that. But ultimately, it has to be your choice. And I think it would be wrong of us or anybody else to say, well, you must take this test. Don't do that. Do what feels right to you, and we'll support that.
All right. And we have our last question from the chat box. Wenda asked, if taking an online exam, will we have to use a laptop, or can a PC with a dual monitor be used? So you're going to have to check with your jurisdiction.
I don't know.
We can't answer that. Obviously, laptops are required for the in-person because you can't bring your entire PC in and set it all up in the exam room. But in terms of at home, they will have very specific.
I think a dual monitor is going to be a no-no, don't you?
I want to say that too, but I cannot promise that. And I think I believe you're in California, Wenda, so they haven't even said they're doing an online exam. So then we don't know what the requirements are going to be. They will, if they decide on an online exam, they will send out specifications and requirements. But yeah, you're definitely going to have to check with your jurisdiction about that. Yeah,
and I think we saw this in Florida where they were talking about accommodations, and there's just, if you need something different, you got to let them know and talk it through, and I think they're going to make a case-by-case decision, and I think that's the best advice we can give anybody is stay in touch with your examiners, watch what they're saying, read the material that comes from them. I know some of you feel like you get inundated with mail and emails, but read it all. Be careful with it. Respond back. Ask your questions. Be proactive. I think if you're doing that, that's the wisest course of action to take right now. No one knows because no one's ever done it before. It's all new. I mean, I think I'm getting these questions that sometimes makes it sound like, oh yeah, we've been doing online exams for years. No, we haven't. We've had an online course for years, but the bar exam has never been given online. So we're all entering strange new territory here.
All right. So that's it. That's what we've got.
Can we do it? Oh, Megan, that's amazing. Yeah, even with me talking over. So I just want to say to all of you as you get into this weekend and start to pivot around the upcoming exams, again, depending on what exam date you're taking, don't let the noise distract you. If you're a September 9th bar taker, don't worry about what the July 28th bar takers are doing, and vice versa. If you're an October 5th bar taker, don't let the discussion about the August 19th Florida exam distract you. These are different tests, different circumstances, different timelines. And I think just our general advice to everybody would be what we've been saying all along. Keep studying, keep working, stay informed, be proactive about the process with the examiners. And as new information becomes available, Megan and I will jump on and let you know when we get California information, if we get some New York information, if another state does something unexpected, we will let you know that. We haven't talked about Georgia. they're still planning to give a 9th and 10th exam in September. So, everybody just keep working, keep moving towards the goal, and we'll figure it out together, right?
Yeah, definitely. We're with you all. We really are. We're here. We care very deeply. I mean, I check that the NCBE website is literally the most visited website on my laptop at the moment. Like, I am checking it constantly, and I am like trying to stay on top of everything for you guys. So yes, we're here with you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thanks, Megan. So take care. With that, we're going to say bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, that's our episode for this week. I hope that we've given you some insight into all of the things that are going on in the bar exam world. We'll obviously keep you updated on new information, particularly from California, but any other states as they make these last-minute determinations before the July and August and September and October exams in 2020. I want to just remind you again, we've got our free training webinar. Now is the best time to take the bar exam. Coming up a couple times a week. Registration is free. It includes a live Q&A at the end of every session. Really encourage you to join us for that. You can sign up at celebrationbarreview.com/now, or just click on the button here on the show notes in the video or audio portion of today's podcast. All right, well, I hope everybody has a great study week, regardless of what your test date is. We're glad you're with us. Stay healthy, stay safe, and we'll see you next week along the Extra Mile.
Thanks for listening and watching the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers at celebrationbarreview.com.